Hey guys, Jackdaw here. Once again, I'm exploring Dragon Age 4 returning to its original dark fantasy roots. Now, I have touched upon this topic in the past where I've discussed the meaning of the dark fantasy genre and how the Dragon Age franchise has utilized and based their narratives on this genre. I explored the foundations of Dragon Age Origins, delving into how the game had been created following the dark fantasy genre. But then further on throughout the franchise's growth with games like Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, the genre was no longer being utilized in the same way it once was originally created. And so today I am furthering on with this conversation, picking up where I left off last time, plunging into what makes Dragon Age dark in the first place, and how the franchise going forward with the next titles can return to its original dark fantasy genre. Now, you do not need to watch my previous video if you want to get the full scoop. This video completely stands on its own. However, if you do want to get right into the discussion, you may learn a few more things by watching that previous video, link in the description down below. I feel that this debate has sparked once more with the recent news that Dragon Age 4 is taking direct Shakespearean influence. And even more than that, we've also known for a while that Alexis Kennedy has been confirmed as a freelance writer for Dragon Age 4, which has again sparked on this conversation of dark fantasy and Dragon Age returning to it. Reportedly, Alexis and his work will involve writing a lot of dark fantasy lore, and dang is that so good to hear, and I'm going to touch upon this greatly later on. But leaving no stone unturned, guys, Dragon Age 4 should return to its original dark fantasy roots. As a TLDR regarding the meaning of the dark fantasy genre, I really like the phrase dark fantasy is an amalgamation of the horror and fantasy genres. So with that in mind, what makes Dragon Age dark in particular? Well, I feel it's a combination of the morally grey choices that subjectively don't have a right or wrong answer, the make-a-forsaken world that the games are set in. Thedas is a tumultuous setting where the jaded notion of anything that can go wrong will go horribly wrong, the plenty of plot devices and themes that surround the narrative like violence, slavery, poverty, abuse of power, religious intolerance, demonic possession, etc. Also not to mention the blood, gore and graphic scenes of homicide and chaos. And I feel that the disturbed creatures, demons, spirits and other sinister supernatural creatures that play a part in the surrounding lore of the games also have a slight touch to the dark fantasy genre. But ultimately, the broodmothers, which I kind of would like to romance in Dragon Age 4, hashtag brooddoor please, they certainly play a huge part of it, and so much more. You get the point I'm trying to make. But when I mentioned each of these points, which game did you all think of? Am I wrong in saying you all thought of Dragon Age Origins and its moral ambiguity? Guys, that's because Dragon Age Origins, and we all know it, takes the mantle for being an RPG that truly follows the dark fantasy genre. It's revolutionized the genre, given it growth, given it some weight, some meaning in the mainstream audience, not just in the Dragon Age franchise, but for every other RPG out there. Can we really say the same of Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition? Are these games truly dark fantasy like Origins was? Now, I don't want to delve into that question too much because I don't want to stray away from the main topic we have right here, but even if you just look at something as basic as Dragon Age Origins color palette, it's filled with reds, maroons, varieties of light and dark browns, very overcast colors that represent many key themes like blood, dirt, death, decay, poverty, etc. These colors represent the overall mood and theme of the world. And when you contrast that to, say, Dragon Age Inquisition's world, can we really say the same? Yes, they have created a beautiful, picturesque representation of Thedas in the Frostbite engine, but in terms of the main colour theory and how the palette represents the overall mood of the world, we have bright, nice, high fantasy colours showcasing beauty in this world and barely any signs of depravity and despair. Instead, we're filled with blue skies and barely anything really depressing that's represented in the world. And if we dare look at elements of dark fantasy in Dragon Age Inquisition, on the flip side, the game does feature what I would call a pretty dark romance with the betrayal of Solas, as he does decide to end the relationship, and this has not been seen in a BioWare game as of late. And although it's pretty heartbreaking, it's not as severe as, say, killing a 10-year-old kid or slitting his mom's neck open. However, it's tragic, I'll give it that, and that is something that I will see going forward with the narrative and the theme of Dragon Age 4, and that is tragedy. We'll touch upon that more later on. But you see, Dragon Age Origins set a standard with its horror elements and high fantasy genres. Tell me of a time when you were truly petrified in Dragon Age Inquisition. Can you really think of any? When Dragon Age Origins was out, it was a staple of dark fantasy. And then, years later, I'm talking even after Inquisition, The Witcher 3 came out, and it dashingly trumped its dark fantasy genres with all of its themes and narrative beats. Now, it would only make sense for Dragon Age 4 to come back and reclaim that dark fantasy genre as king. And I'm hoping that's gonna happen. Now, something that's going to be huge going forward for the Dragon Age franchise, that we can work out right now based on the current development level, thanks to the recent news video that I created, we can severely speculate Dragon Age's narrative and what it may convey based on the game's inspiration. Now, for instance, Dragon Age Origins was clearly inspired by the likes of fiction like The Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and even real-life historical events like the War of Roses, which just inspires every single piece of medieval literature. You can see each reference and inspiration plentiful within Dragon Age Origins, like the White Walkers resembling the Darkspawn, Jon Snow basically being Alistair, etc, etc, etc. And so with Dragon Age 4, as I discussed within last week's Tvint of our Discontent video, the game is directly taking inspiration from Richard III and, you betcha, the War of Roses. Truly a tragic turn of events. So again, the theme of tragedy is something that I see will be huge in Dragon Age 4, as a motivation for certain characters and a plot device. It's that Shakespearean plot reference, guys. Shakespeare is a master of tragedy, and Dragon Age 4 is directly being inspired by that. So will Dragon Age 4's Shakespearean inspiration revert the franchise back to its iconic genre? I certainly think so. And so with that, how will Dragon Age 4 double down on dark fantasy and its tragedy themes? Well guys, remember we are going to the Tvint Imperium, the very home to slavery, chaotic magic, racism, cults, left and right political agendas, magisters, mayhem, and an abundance of dark, disturbed themes. It's certainly going to be an epic ride, and Dragon Age 4 should reclaim its roots simply upon entering the gates of the Tvint Imperium. Walking down the street, witnessing the slaves at hard work, seeing the Tvint people in their gothic fashion, heading up to the Magisterium. It should be ripe with emo and gothic culture. But if that's not enough, Alexis Kennedy is writing a bunch of gothic shenanigans going in and around Vadis. He spoke in an interview in like 2017 saying this: "I'm just a big old goth, and BioWare put me on working on a whole chunk of lore and backstory for the faction in the game that you would think of if you were thinking big old goth. You know, if you were interested in death. So I'm thinking some crazy dragon cults, the Mortalitasi, heck, even just walking into the Magisterium and seeing them doing some disturbed stuff. This lore that Alexis is writing opens the door to plenty of speculation and dark fantasy roots." Now, something to know about Alexis Kennedy is that, unfortunately, but I guess good for us, is that apparently he's incredible at writing narratives surrounding death and departure because of his own personal experience with death firsthand. So if you needed any more encouragement for Dragon Age 4 to return to its gothic teen phase, well guys, we have Alexis paving the ways, bringing in those death-centered gothic plotlines. I feel he's more on the verge of writing about the Mortalitasi, because when you think about death in the Dragon Age universe, I instantly think about Navarra and the Mortalitasi with the mummifying of their corpses and yada yada yada. Again though, it could be dragon cults, it could be remaining magisters in Tevinter, or it could be about something completely different. Regardless, that is super exciting. And if that doesn't fill you with confidence that Dragon Age 4 will be hitting on its dark fantasy roots, then I do not know what will. But regardless, Alexis is writing good old gothic lore for Dragon Age 4. So if anything, we should certainly expect that. And also, don't forget about the whole Shakespearean plot references that are going to be hitting Dragon Age 4. Richard III is completely tragic. Plenty of Shakespeare's work is, and Dragon Age 4 taking inspiration for that is going to be wonderful. Completely tragic, but wonderful. And need I mention that Patrick Weeks is of course still writing away at BioWare. The creator of Solas, the big bad dread wolf himself, Orb Taker, heartbreaker. What more need I say? But anyway guys, tell me down below any parts of Dragon Age Inquisition that you truly found to be scary, to be frightening, and how they can implement even more of those into Dragon Age 4. Tell me how you feel about dark fantasy returning in the future and how you would like to see it. But until then guys, for all your things BioWare, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, all that jazz, you're already in the right place. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, check out my blog and Patreon. But until the next one, I've been Jackdaw, and I should go. Whoa, 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 whoa.